Chapter 1. Colony Eridan 3. When we came out of stasis, the first thing that hit me was the light, cold, sharp, unnaturally white. I blinked, struggling to remember my name, and only after a few seconds did I feel the capsule trembling. Judging by the vibrations, we had already landed. Eridan 3. A new point on humanity's map. Another planet where we'd pretend to be in charge. A few hours later, I stood on the observation deck, staring at the dusty blue sky. No clouds, no sun, only the scattered glow of 3 moons, taking turns rising over the horizon. The atmosphere was breathable, but left a bitter taste, like ozone laced with copper. We were already joking, everything here smelled like metal, even the air. The colony was standard, airtight modules, biospheres, a communications hub, power unit, and science cluster, 3 domes connected by transparent corridors. I headed the genetics division, and our mission was simple. Collect samples of local fauna and microbes, analyze their structure, and, if possible, adapt them to Earth-based cultures. Theoretically, the planet was sterile. In practice, something was alive in the soil. Or had been. We got the lab up and running quickly. Incubators, PCR analyzers, culture jars. Every day I woke up thinking, today we'll discover something. But at first, only disappointment. Most of the bacteria wouldn't grow in our conditions. The animals were like fragments of shadows, hidden, fast, elusive. But then one sample changed everything. A team from the geology unit brought back a rock core from the northern plateau. Julian, my partner, and I immediately noticed something strange, an inclusion that looked like a fragment of chitin. It seemed foreign, even against the backdrop of an alien world, as if someone had embedded it into the stone. We ran tests. Its DNA existed. Complex. Not like a typical insect. More like something between an insect and a reptile. The proteins resembled those found in Earth's arthropods, but with an abnormally high concentration of fluorinated compounds. It was alive, Julian whispered when the analysis flashed green. And it might still be. From that day, everything changed. We didn't just collect, we started crossbreeding. Carefully, step by step. We used sterile protocols, created an isolated section for the hybrids. The first attempts failed. Earth bacteria rejected the alien proteins. But after weeks, our first breakthroughs. Microflora grown on fragments of the alien chitin began producing new amino acids. One culture even glowed in the dark, like a jellyfish. It felt like we were uncovering a biological El Dorado. Life in the colony followed a routine. Morning, briefings. Day, sample collection, lab work. Evening, reports, and the occasional dinner with colleagues. Sometimes I stepped outside the dome, just to feel the alien ground beneath my feet. It had a spring to it, as if absorbing my weight. In those moments I wondered, had there been life here before us? Not microscopic, real life. Thinking, building, destroying, feeling. Julian, ever the skeptic, waved it off. If there was, it's long gone. Let's try not to screw up our own while we're at it. But I saw it in his eyes, the same spark that was in mine. We both knew, this planet wasn't just a rock with an atmosphere. It was breathing. Not like Earth, differently. As if it was watching. I wrote in my notebook. Eridan 3, too many coincidences. Too perfect for us. Why? We didn't ask that question out loud. We just kept working. And with each new day, each new sample, we moved closer to the discovery that would become the crowning achievement of our mission. Chapter 2. Traces of the past. We weren't looking for monsters. We were searching for algorithms. Each day brought new discoveries, tissue samples, bacterial colonies, rare traces of fauna defying terrestrial classification. But the real breakthrough came from deep within the rock layers beyond the boundary of Zone 12. There, buried in the dark gray sediments, we found something that shifted the entire focus of our mission. Fossils. Not the crisp ones you see in paleontology textbooks. These were blurred, as if they'd been absorbed by the stone itself rather than imprinted upon it. But the outlines didn't lie: joints, chitinous shells, even fragments of beak-like appendages. We sent the images to the Central Bioinformatics Network, and a day later, received a strangely restrained reply: no Earth analogues. Probability of biogenic origin, 84%. Julian stared at the scans for a long time, flipping through the spectral data in silence. You realize what this means? He finally exhaled. This isn't just a sterile planet. There was life here. Complex. Developed. And where is it now? Maybe it died out, I shrugged. Or went underground. Either way, it doesn't change our task. He gave a crooked smile but said nothing. We started assembling the first hybrids around the same time we were analyzing the fossils. As always, we began simple: soil microorganisms, then primitive worms and amoeboid forms, eventually moving on to more complex life. Eridanus III's fauna was sparse but diverse, within a strange internal logic of evolution. Most notable were the arthropods, multi-legged, translucent creatures hiding in rock fissures and burrowing through sand. When we decided to crossbreed one of them with a terrestrial spider, Lycosa tarantula, Julian insisted on total isolation. The hybrid incubator was moved to a separate dome, the zero module, as the text called it. It had its own life support, filtration, even an independent AI monitor. Experiment 17K. At first, the creature resembled a larva, shapeless, soft-chitined, with 4 underdeveloped limbs. It moved slowly, fed on standard protein gel, and reacted to light. After 3 days, it began to molt. By day 5, it had grown additional pairs of limbs. By day 8, it no longer feared people. Its growth isn't normal, Julian said during the 4th examination. It's evolving too quickly. Its neural architecture already approaches reptilian complexity. This can't be just the result of random crossbreeding. Maybe it's the first stable hybrid, I countered. Isn't that what we were aiming for? He fell silent. Then added, quietly. Don't you hear it? It rustles when we enter. Like it's listening. The creature, codenamed 17K, did behave strangely. It didn't attack, didn't show aggression. But each time we entered the dome, it froze. As if trying to understand us. At first, we thought it was reacting to movement or light. But one day, it mimicked the hand motion of one of the assistants. Just once. Precisely. Slowly. And in that moment, I felt something twist inside me. Maybe it's learning? I whispered. Julian only nodded, eyes locked on the screen. Doubt began to gnaw at us. But Project Command demanded results, so we pressed on. We documented increases in intelligence, neural density, responsiveness. 17K molted nearly every day, changing each time. It grew, in every sense of the word. Its DNA was changing too, fragments previously inert were activating. We assumed it was a mutation. We were wrong. I found Julian late at night in the lab. He was staring at a printout of the hybrid's genetic profile, his face pale. Look at this segment, he whispered. It's copying DNA from the environment. It's analyzing and integrating it. That's impossible. It doesn't have an editing mechanism. It didn't. Now it does. It's learning. Consuming us. I didn't believe it then. It sounded too incredible. Too convenient for paranoia. But something in Julian's voice shook me. He didn't sound like a scientist. He sounded like a man who just realized he'd unleashed something he couldn't control. And 17K was watching us from inside its transparent dome. Motionless. Unblinking. Just waiting. Chapter 3. Experiment 17K. The first to disappear was the life support technician, Miguel. Young, loud, always with music in his ears. We blamed it on a systems failure in Sector B, for the power panels there had been unstable, and the AI recorded a sharp voltage spike at the same time. All we found was his communicator, melted as if someone had pressed it to an induction burner. Then, Lee June. She simply wasn't in her capsule the next morning. No prints. No logs. No steps in the hallway. As if she'd evaporated. Julian was the first to speak. We missed something. Something fundamental. I wanted to argue, but deep down, that wordless fear was already growing. The creature in Section 17K had changed beyond recognition in the last 72 hours. Its limbs had elongated, now covered in thickened chitin, with new joints and fine bristles along the spine that looked like sensory hairs. Its eyes, what we thought were eyes, had begun to glow in the dark, registering movement even through opaque barriers. I recorded new behavior, Julian said, reviewing the video log. It doesn't sleep. Just goes still for a few hours, but the brain activity doesn't drop. In fact, it increases. The neural waves, they don't match anything from Earth neurobiology. I stayed silent. I had already felt it too. Every time I entered the section, my ears would pop like before a thunderstorm. Some strange vibration filled the air, not sound, but intent. We both knew, this was no longer an experiment. It was observation. But we were no longer the observers, we were the subjects. Julian insisted on reanalyzing the DNA. This isn't just growth, he said. It's targeted adaptation. The hybrid isn't mutating randomly, it's building itself. As if it has a plan. The spectrograms confirmed the impossible. New RNA sequences showed fragments identical to the DNA of one of the missing technicians. And after that, previously unclassified genetic sequences. We checked the archives, they matched bacteria we had never introduced into the hybrid. It had consumed them. Absorbed them. And rewritten itself. Julian turned pale, gripping the edge of the table. This isn't mimicry. It's assimilation. He ran a test. The next morning, while I was inspecting the hermetic seals, he transferred an isolated culture of 17K into a separate capsule, fully secured. He introduced a sample of human-origin tissue, keratin. Within 2 hours, the creature replicated the structure. An hour later, it elongated one of its appendages, perfectly shaping it into a human-like hand. No muscles, only chitin, tendons, and fingers. 5. Precise. Articulate. We started whispering its name, Chimera. It understands us, Julian said. Or it's learning to. And I think, it hears. Hears what? He showed me a waveform from the neural monitor. A signal with a frequency matching human EEG patterns during focused concentration. But it was directed. Like a beacon. Like a call. Is that a transmission? I asked, barely breathing. Or a search. Maybe, a response. If it has consciousness, even a rudimentary one, it wants out. That night, Julian didn't sleep. Neither did I. We were in the lab when the lights flickered. The AI issued a brief report, a failure in the isolator unit. I ran toward it, but Julian was already ahead of me. He entered alone. Through the airlock. No suit. No protection. Julian, wait, don't go in. I yelled, but my voice was drowned in the alarm. The cameras showed him standing 3 meters from the Chimera. The creature didn't move. Then it slowly advanced. Very slowly, almost, not to startle. Less than a meter apart, Julian said something, the mics didn't catch it. The Chimera raised its hand, the one with fingers, and touched the glass between them. That was it. Signal lost. By the time I reached the airlock, it was empty. Inside, no trace. Not even clothes. They had been folded neatly, like in a sleep capsule. I am alone again. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what I feel. Beyond the walls, behind the bulkheads, even within me, something is reaching. Probing space. Not with eyes. With thoughts. And I've begun to hear a voice. Faint as a whisper. A call. The call of the Chimera. Chapter 4. Disappearances. After Julian vanished, something fractured in the colony. It was as if someone had ripped the main cable out of the wall, and the lights inside our minds began to flicker. At first, we clung to routine, reports, duty shifts, the changing temperatures in the greenhouses. But a tense silence settled over the settlement. People stopped greeting each other in the corridors. They held eye contact, just a second too long. As if checking. As if searching for signs of the other. The following week, 3 more vanished: Anderson from Supply, Biologist Vega, and Security Officer Rice. No arguments. No distress signals. Just empty capsules and unresponsive tracking implants. All of them were last seen near the sector that housed the 17K laboratory. I raised the alarm. Requested a full internal systems check, but the AI reported that all life signatures within the colony were stable. Only, they didn't match the database. Some had changed at a microscopic level. When I unlocked the archival logs, a chill ran through me. There were records of altered genetic signatures, subtle, almost indistinguishable noise, but repeating in the same pattern. The Chimera was copying colonists' DNA. And replacing them. I contacted Captain Marissa Brenner. Her face was tense, she'd begun to suspect something too. "Are you sure it's not a database fault?" she asked. "It's not an error," I replied. "It's mimicry at the genomic level. It takes a sample, reprocesses it, and forges the biometric signal beyond recognition. It could look like anyone. It could be anyone. How much time do we have?" Her voice dropped. I stayed silent. I didn't know. But I felt, time was nearly gone. That night, the first attack happened. The alarm blared in residential Block C. By the time we got there with security, the walls were streaked with blood. The stains weren't just splatter, they were long, dragged, as if a body had been pulled across the floor. Shredded clothing. And prints. 8 legs in parallel, like some enormous spider. But the tracks were off. Something else had touched the floor: claws? Fingers? The captain ordered the sector sealed off. We split up. I headed to the lab core. We needed an immediate comparison of all medical data. If the thing could imitate even us, there was only one way left: a blood test. But when I activated the scanners, the system glitched. The monitor flashed with dozens of matches. Too many. The Chimera wasn't just copying people, it was merging with them, adapting, disappearing into them. I realized we might already have multiple hybrids in the colony. And perhaps, we weren't entirely human anymore. Not all of us. Soon came the next report: Joan, the medic, was gone. They found her by morning, or what was left of her. Her face was unrecognizable, as if something had tried to break through from the inside. Near the body, black, chitinous tissue. Wet. Still alive. The captain issued the order: all colony exits under guard. Inside, curfew. Mass screenings began. Everyone gave blood. Everyone was scanned. Some broke down, screaming, fighting, crying. Paranoia bloomed like a venomous flower. I locked myself in the lab. I knew the Chimera was close. Maybe, just an arm's length away. And the worst part was the feeling that grew inside me, the sense of alien thoughts. A whisper behind the eyes. Questions without words. A cold, clinical curiosity. It was learning. Fast. And now, it was watching us from the inside. Chapter 5. The Flesh Mask. I no longer slept. Just brief snatches of unconsciousness, a few minutes at a time, while the processors cross-checked samples. Every night, I isolated myself in the lab core, trying to find something, anything, that could give us an edge. We weren't hunting anymore. We were hiding. And the creature, on the contrary, was studying us like specimens under a microscope. The worst was yet to come. I received new data, archived logs from colonists' biometric implants. I began cross-referencing anomalous signatures and found something horrifying. In every case where a victim's body had been recovered, their biological profile had begun to show irregularities hours before death, as if their system was already starting to merge with something else. The Chimera wasn't just copying. It was integrating. Erasing identity. Hijacking not only the body but behavioral patterns as well. That explained why it had taken us so long to spot it. We'd been searching for the monster, when we should have been looking for the mask. Panic in the colony hit its peak. People stopped trusting even themselves. One engineer tried to wipe out his entire shift, claiming they weren't human anymore. We had to deactivate him, permanently. After that, Captain Brenner enforced a full lockdown. No movement between sectors without clearance and a blood test. But even that wasn't enough. I saw it with my own eyes. One night, on my way to the Central Archive, I heard a voice in the corridor. I recognized it instantly, Julian's voice. He was calling my name, softly, almost a whisper. I froze. My heart hammered 3 times in 1 second. Then I stepped around the corner. He was there. Unharmed. Smiling. Just as I remembered him. Except his eyes, they weren't Julian's. No doubt, no pain, no sarcasm, only a cold, empty void. He took a step toward me, arms open. "You missed me, didn't you?" he said, and his voice cracked, like it was coming through a broken radio. I stumbled back. His face twitched. Like a film peeling off skin. For a second, I saw the real form, predatory eyes on a chitinous mask, damp, rippling flesh, and a slit in his neck. Something moved inside it. I ran. Behind me, I heard laughter. Not human. Something between rustling leaves and grinding metal. It didn't chase me. It didn't need to. It wanted me to know. The next day, I called an emergency meeting of the Science Council. I showed them footage from the surveillance cams. DNA fragments still mutating even in sterile lab conditions. A statistical avalanche of identity swaps. I told them the truth. We can't trust biometrics anymore. Not blood, not eyes. It adapts and alters itself faster than we can detect. Our only chance is total isolation and evacuation. Some agreed. Others didn't. One of them, Grant, called me paranoid. Well, 2 hours later, he vanished. Along with his assistant. Then the cameras caught him coming back. Alone. With that same smile. That same look. They were already among us. That's when the hunt began. We split into groups, armed ourselves with weapons, scanners, whatever tech we had left, and started testing everyone. Some resisted. Some begged. One colonist's skin began peeling from his bones during the scan, like a discarded husk. I'll never forget the scream he let out when we incinerated him with an impulse cutter. Captain Brenner issued a new directive: any suspect, terminate on sight. Now, every face looked like a mask to me. Every movement, off, somehow. I stopped trusting even mirrors. Even myself. The Chimera wasn't hiding anymore. It was playing. And it was winning. Chapter 6. The last one in the lab. I knew the end was near even before it began. The air had changed, thicker, heavier. Empty corridors echoed like the halls of a mausoleum. The colony was dying, not all at once, not suddenly, but as if it were seeping away through cracks in reality. And we were dying with it. The central station was silent. Too silent. The teams had stopped responding. The biology sector had long gone dark. Not a single light glowed in the administrative block. I sat in the lab, surrounded by the remnants of what we once called science: samples, blood-stained slides, broken scanners. None of it mattered anymore. The Chimera was no longer hunting for bodies. It wanted something more. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. A whisper in my head. Strange thoughts that didn't feel like mine. They came in dreams and while I was awake, like someone breathing into my mind from just beside me. Sometimes, I heard Julian's voice calling from the dark, though I knew he was dead. Sometimes, it was my own voice. I woke up on the lab floor and knew something had changed. Not in the room, in me. Somewhere deep inside, in the farthest corners of my consciousness, something was trying to speak to me. Thoughts not my own, intonations that didn't belong, images I'd never seen. The creature had begun studying me from the inside. I injected myself with a stabilizer and activated the manual block on cognitive patterns, an old neural filter we used when working with parapsychic stimulants. It bought me a few hours. Long enough to run. In the corridor, I stumbled into a massacre. A real one. Captain Brenner lay twisted like a broken doll. In her eyes, frozen in death, was a look of surprise, like she never figured out who had killed her. All around were the bodies of those who, just yesterday, had prepared to storm the southern sector. Now they were dead. Or, almost dead. One of them rose, staggering. His movements were wrong, too smooth, as if his limbs were being operated by something else. He looked at me. "You're still here," he said. His voice was low and layered, like a dozen voices speaking through a single throat. Why? I didn't answer. I bolted for the emergency airlock. Initiated manual override. There was a backup shuttle in Dock 18. 1 minute until the hatch opened. The creature moved toward me, calm, certain. It knew I barely stood a chance. And then I heard it. Not a voice, a thought. Inescapable, alien, predatory. You were made to understand. Stay. Become part. Embrace the merging. I screamed, tearing the thought out of my skull. I ran the last few meters to the hatch, activated the biometric seal, and engaged the isolation protocol. Everything left inside the lab was locked down, sealed tight. Behind the glass, just a shadow. The creature. It stood there, watching me. Not angry. Not hateful. More like, curious. Then it turned and walked away. I reached the shuttle and entered the final launch code. The system asked for confirmation of full sector lockout, confirm evacuation. Return is impossible. I pressed yes. The launch was smooth. Quiet. As if the planet itself didn't want to hold me anymore. Through the viewport, I watched the dark surface of Eridan 3 recede slowly into the distance. And inside, the whisper still lingered. You were close. Closer than you think. We will meet again. I activated the shielding screen, locked all external channels, and closed the comms loop. Chapter 7. Blood Test. The shuttle trembled as I climbed through the atmosphere. Outside the porthole, flashes lit up the dark. Our base burned like a massive pyre on the black surface of Eridanus 3. I was alone. Or so I believed. In the cargo bay were a few hazmat suits, a couple of medkits, and a portable DNA scanner. I connected it to the control panel and activated the biosecurity protocol. From now on, no one would be allowed aboard without a scan. Not even Lara. The transmitter was damaged, but I still managed to send a distress signal to the orbital module. The automated station in geostationary orbit could take us in, if we made it that far. Until then, I had to find survivors. I descended toward Sector Beta 4, where the residential modules used to be. The scanner picked up a faint thermal trace. My heart pounded faster. When the hatch opened, a figure stepped onto the ramp, her suit torn, one arm covered in blood. Lara. You're alive. She exhaled, her voice cracking. Don't move. Blood test, I said, raising the scanner. She silently held out her arm. The beam swept across her skin. The indicator blinked green. Clear. I let out a breath. Inside the shuttle, she sat down without a word. I handed her a spare suit. As she changed, I couldn't stop remembering how the creature had mimicked Julian, his voice, his expressions, even his memories. Was it just imitation? Or had it started to think? To understand? To manipulate? I wasn't going to take any chances. With each landing, I found 1 or 2 survivors. Out of 36, we gathered 7. Everyone was scanned. One failed. The moment the beam touched him, he lunged at us without a sound, a harsh clicking escaping from what used to be his mouth. A chimera. Or what remained of it. I burned him with the tent before he could get close. The others understood without a word. Trust was no longer a currency we could afford. The last one we found was a girl, maybe 10 years old. She was sitting in a ruined classroom, clutching a stuffed bear. Next to her was the body of a woman in a shredded uniform. She won't wake up. The girl whispered. I scanned her. Clear. What's your name? Ailey. She leaned against me. I heard someone calling me. In my head. Like they were inside me. I looked at Lara. She had gone pale. Telepathy. We were too close to the thing. Or to what it had become. When the shuttle's ramp sealed shut, I locked down the entry system completely. No unscanned lifeform could get on board again. We sat in silence, each of us lost in our thoughts. The stares were heavy. Distrustful. Any one of us now could be the threat. I checked the bioscanner logs again. All readings were clear. And yet, I felt no relief. What if the creature had learned to fool the machines? I looked at Ailey, sleeping in her seat, clutching the plush toy in her hands. And I thought only one thing. Did we really escape it? Or is it already inside? Chapter 8. Call of the Chimera. Eridanus 3 was behind us now. On the navigation screens, it was just a coordinate. A gray-green smear in the silent void. We'd reached a stable orbit and engaged the engines for acceleration. The shuttle shuddered, as if it too could feel what we'd left behind. There were 8 of us left on board. Lara sat by the porthole, watching the receding landscape. Ailey slept curled beneath a blanket, her plush bear resting beside her. The others were silent, as if every word would only make things worse. And maybe it would. I checked the containment protocols one more time. All sections, sealed. Biosecurity, active. At least, in theory. Because now, I didn't trust a single scanner or number. The thing we had created, it was no longer just a biological experiment. It had become something more. I remembered its gaze, if you could even call it that. More like awareness. Piercing. Studying. Reflecting me back at myself. Back in the lab, right before I triggered lockdown and escaped, I had felt presence. It didn't attack. It watched. And now I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching. Through space. Through time. Through DNA. Are we going to destroy the station? Someone asked behind me. I nodded. Silently. I entered the activation code, Protocol Helios 9. Remote self-destruction. In 3 minutes, the station and the base on Eridanus 3 would become a glass crater. It will know we're afraid of it, Lara whispered. It already knows, I replied. A flash appeared on the screen, silent, blinding white. Waves of energy rippled across the planet's night side in a widening ring. Ash. Concrete. Genetic hell. All of it, burned. But I didn't feel victorious. No pride. No relief. Only pain and realization. We hadn't eliminated the threat. We had only delayed the inevitable. I looked at Ailey again. She stirred in her sleep and murmured something. The words were unclear. Or maybe I just didn't want to hear them. We sent a report. Fragmented. From a damaged transmitter. Maybe it would reach Earth. Maybe someone would believe. But I knew one thing for certain. We could never go back. Not ever. I recorded a final message. No speeches. No blame. Just a thought. The last one. We wanted to create life. But we forgot that life can create us.